Good evening and welcome to our September 24th, 2025 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. Paper copies of the agenda are available for those here in person. The full packet is available on our website. Reviewing our agenda, we'll first consider our consent agenda. There are 2 items on that agenda. After our consent agenda, we'll have general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we apply certain rules regarding public comments. We'll do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Here are the rules. 1, each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we'll accept public comment of any length in writing. 2, individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. 3, all comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission. And 4, we reserve the right to mute or remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and address for our meeting minutes and address your comments to the Commission. Please also know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comments on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we'll try and get your specific questions answered. After that, we'll move to our regular agenda. There is 1 item on our regular agenda, which is regarding acquisition of the Blackjack Battlefield property. For that action item, we'll first hear from staff or the applicant. There's no applicant on this one, followed by the questions from the Commission, and then open it up for public comment relevant to that item. Once public comment is closed, we'll bring the item back to the Commission for further discussion and a vote. Lastly, our recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. With that, Commissioners, I'd ask if there's any commissioner who'd like to pull an item from the consent agenda for further discussion. Seeing none, open it up to the public to see if there's anyone who'd like to remove an item from the consent agenda. Anyone online, Sarah? All right. Bring it back to the Commission for motions.
I move to approve consent agenda items 1.1 and 1.2.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll move on to general public comment. Is there anyone here at the courthouse who'd like to provide general public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close general public comment. If I ask for general public comment, let's step up and provide your comment, please.
Commissioners, we are not hearing online. I'm sorry.
So restart my time, please.
Continue.
No, restart. So the original reason I started coming back in here, Patrick, was because of you and your pseudo, whatever it is that you're doing with this thing that you're going to meet at on October 6th and discuss how poorly people are treating you. I made a sign, Patrick Kelly is a pussy, because that's how you were handling these meetings. But the situation has changed because now, make sure your cameras at home can see that since you've been limiting things. Sarah Plinsky is a damn liar. And there's proof. You know, last week, everybody got kicked out of the media area over here. I was fine with it as long as everybody's being treated equally. If they're going to have media access, I'm going to be up there too. Try it and see what happens. But instead of just accepting equal treatment in this town, the Journal World editor, Chad Lawhorn, decided to send an email to Sarah Plinsky and find out how he could get around this. Chad suggested that the county define a media member. That's laughable. Folks, the U.S. Constitution has already defined what the media is, clearly. Number 2, Chad suggested I need the endorsement of some members-only group to be considered media. Flat wrong. The U.S. Constitution is all I need. He makes some comments about a court, but you aren't judges. But Chad does bring up an interesting concept. We'll revisit that later, and you guys can all observe that. Reserved media speaking area or reserved media seating is a great option. I think it is a great option. And he even talks about being threatened. I can't tell you how many times I've personally been threatened. Not just by the people, but by your law enforcement officers. And having free power, holy crap, you wouldn't believe the amount of extra batteries and stuff I've been carrying. Just because I figured that's what was expected. You guys give out journalists free power and my taxpayers pay for that. That's his thing, that he wants free power. Yeah, so Sarah, I don't know why you didn't respond to this. I don't know why she didn't respond to this, but it's interesting that it went to her assistant. Carrie Britt was the one that actually responded to it. I guess Sarah must have been a little embarrassed with the whole situation and the fact that the plot was uncovered with a simple Cora request. By the way, that she tried to claim that was going to require attorney review and there was going to be all kinds of expense and needed extra time and extra days. Guys, this is a Cora request for communications between our county government and members of the media. There is no exclusion. Your county administrator knows this.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, please, don't shut it down.
My name is Dr. Justin Spees. Back in January of 2024, I filed a lawsuit against Sheriff Jay Armbrister, a couple of his deputies, and then this county commission right here for an unlawful arrest. That happened here in April of 2022, and then multiple removals and silences from you guys while I was up here speaking. And then we further added to that lawsuit for another unlawful arrest that you all coordinated here at May 1st, 2024 meeting while I was in here. And all of these are unlawful because I was exercising my First Amendment rights. And so anyways, as part of that lawsuit, Armbrister and his deputy, Krutzel, when they arrested me on April 20th, 2022 in here, they lost their qualified immunity because it was an unlawful arrest. There was no probable cause to have done what they did to me. And so a couple weeks ago, Jay Armbrister had his deposition, and in that deposition, it was revealed that, lo and behold, there were multiple lies on the police report that were made up about me and what happened in here in order to, quote unquote, justify their arrest of me in here. And so that's what's called malicious. That was retaliatory intent and malicious from them. And you all as well, because you wanted me out of here at that meeting as well, both those meetings. Same thing with May 1st. And so I want you to put yourself in my shoes where you're in here exercising your rights at these meetings like I am right now, and then you get arrested, you get kidnapped and battered and taken out of here, and then you get lied about it. And imagine what that would do to your motherfuckers' lives. What do you think that would do to your life? The whole thing was a fucking lie. The whole thing was a lie. And it was reported on by LJ World as though it was fact. Me getting arrested out here. How fucking embarrassing that was. And it was all for no reason. Because your little fucking feelings. So some cuss words on a fucking sign. Imagine if that happened to you. How the fuck do you think you'd feel? And then it happened twice. It happened a second time. Both those the one charge was dismissed. The other one wasn't even pursued because it was such fucking bullshit. Again, reported on the papers. Nothing about Armbrister losing his qualified immunity, though, LJ World. Nothing about that, of course. Only about that I got arrested. Only that I got arrested. Not that it was unlawful. Not that the highest law enforcement officer in the county was elected by the community here. No, they don't need to know that he fucked it up because he's full of fucking hate. He's un-American, just like all you motherfuckers are. Each one of you, especially you motherfucker. Patrick Kelly, bitch.
Any other public comment? Anyone online, Sarah? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our regular agenda. And the first item is acquisition of Blackjack Battlefield property. And is this Sean? All right, I'll turn it over to Sean.
Thank you, Commission. Excuse me. There we go. Just a little bit of background on Blackjack. So Blackjack is located near Baldwin City, just to the east of Baldwin. It's a nationally historical significant site tied to the events of Bleeding Kansas and also what ultimately led to the Civil War. The property is approximately 40 acres and includes a nature park and trails, as well as the Robert Hall Pearson Farmhouse. I do want to just point out within the packet, there was a report that was put together with recommendations that I think Caitlin may be able to speak to a little bit when if there are questions related to that. But ultimately, the outcome of that effort was that the property would be best served if put into public hands. I do want to point out that since 2011, the county's invested a little over $466,000 in preservation efforts at Blackjack. So in that spirit, what is being presented is an option to put together both a joint ownership and a financing agreement with the city of Baldwin. In particular, the terms would be a joint ownership after the closing of the property between the city and the county. The funding agreement speaks to about $250,000, or rather $250,000 contribution from the county to assist with the acquisition by the city. And then also that the city manages the operations and continues public access to the site. One important part that I want to point out is the Joint Advisory Board. So there is a board that is put together or would be put together to help guide the future use and preservation. That would be an equal set of members, both from the city of Baldwin and the city of County, to be appointed to that. And again, I point out Caitlin has been very instrumental in these conversations over the years, as well as several other folks, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions, commissioners?
So what voices have been involved in this conversation? I know it's been ongoing for a little while, and you have a list of folks here. I didn't know if that was the people who've been working on it to get to this point, or if these are kind of folks that we're looking at for that larger advisory board after the fact.
Yep. So I think to answer both of those questions, there's been a lot of conversations over the years, and I think the recommendation and the committee that was put together is listed in the packet. As of late, again, the city of Baldwin has worked into a lease with the trust to manage the property over the course of the last year. And they've had the option
That's
to.
the Blackjack Battlefield Trust, which is the nonprofit that
Correct.
owned it today. Okay.
Yep. And then again, the city of Baldwin City being the folks that are actually leasing and maintaining. They have the option again to purchase that property at the end of November, excuse me. So a lot of the conversations have been very much between the city and the county over the last 9 months to kind of put together these two agreements.
This is getting a little bit in the weeds here, but there was some talk about the Shermer Trust, and that was connected to some dollars that were set aside for the construction of the visitor center. Can you talk through what that? There's some unrestricted funds, and then there's something going through through probate or for that trust being processed. How does that play in?
I don't know if I can necessarily speak to that. I don't know if Caitlin, if you can get into that or not. What I would say is that the agreements that are in front of you for consideration assume clear title. So ultimately, this is a process that if there are any sort of encumbrances on the property, there is a requirement that prior to any exchange of funds or closing on the property, that a clear title needs to be presented. Again, I don't have the whole history of some of the other funds that have been involved.
Hi there, Caitlin Amerlin, the Heritage Conservation Coordinator for Douglas County. I would just echo what Sean said. Have just been operating on the information that the trust provided to us last year when we were going through this process. And so we kind of flagged that among the preservation group last year as a sort of next step of figuring out what those funds mean for the property moving forward. But as Sean said, this agreement in terms of acquiring the site doesn't necessarily consider that, but we had kind of flagged that. I point to Steve here and Marta Jardin of Santa Fe Trail. Steve with Douglas County Historical Society were part of that group. Steve helped kind of lead that with some of the board members. And yeah, that was flagged as a something to consider as far as the next steps of the property.
Just kind of can you just give a brief overview? Like, what's the history of this property been in terms of the ownership, how it got to where it is, and then Baldwin City stepping in to help cover the cost of that loan?
Yeah, so well, I can speak to what I've been involved with since 2024, so last year, and kind of how that all came together. But yeah, I was notified by members of the Blackjack Battlefield Trust that they were facing a financial crisis of sorts, and were seeking assistance however they could through community organizations, and they approached the county as well. We took those concerns seriously. As noted, the county has invested a lot in the site and is dear to a lot of county residents. And so we listened there. They also contacted the Douglas County Historical Society. Steve could speak to any questions about that process. And so with that and kind of moving at the speed that we can with that sort of this scale of work, listened and kind of identified what might be possible. And that's where the Preservation Committee kind of came in, and we kind of took it to this strong group of community members, again, led mostly by Douglas County Historical Society and county providing support there. And ultimately, the recommendations were kind of listed there in the report. And as Sean noted, kind of took it from there.
And the ongoing, programmatic support, I guess we haven't really talked about programming, et cetera, but just upkeep of the site, will that then fall to Baldwin City? So the $250,000 investment that the county's being asked for is just to secure the land, and then beyond that, who will be covering those other costs?
Yeah, so as it's outlined right now, Baldwin City is responsible for the maintenance. But one of the primary goals of that advisory board that would come from, again, as the next step of this, would help advise on what might be needed, both in the short term and the long term. And then potentially those recommendations could come before this body or Baldwin City Council to see what's needed to see that the site is both maintained and honored, as best as it can be. So that would be one of the primary goals of that advisory board.
I know there used to be some like community type programming that took place at the site, and we're a little ways from being able to answer like how that comes back and who's in charge of it. But what are some of the thoughts of I assume that is a goal?
Definitely. And that was definitely something I think it's highlighted in the report there. Both Steve and Marta have been wonderful advocates for using our existing, folks in the county that do this work to activate programming out there again, utilizing our network of resources. I feel like this ties in well with some of our other ongoing conversation in terms of collaborative work in the heritage space. And this would be a neat opportunity to kind of leverage the strengths of our various heritage organizations to see that that programming is restored out there.
I do just want to just elevate that the question is really prudent with regard to this committee and the formation of the committee, because ultimately, again, we're not necessarily trying to solve all of the issues with these agreements. We're just trying to get this to a state of financial stability so that we can have some of these big tent conversations about what programs look like out there, what capital investment looks like. And those are not necessarily easy answers or questions. But again, I think that's what the framework that we've set up allows to occur, is again, having stability within the ownership and the financial side of things, but ultimately opening the door and ensuring that there's a collaborative conversation about what the future holds for Blackjack.
Otherwise, by November, it might pass into private hands and be available for development, and we would lose access to that.
It certainly could. I think the trust would certainly want to see the property continue to be what it is, which is a significantly historical site that's being preserved for future generations. And I think that the county, from a staff standpoint, that's exactly what we've tried to put together is a framework that allows that to occur.
I probably would have more, but I'm happy to yield it back to the chair and I can ask more after public comment too.
And for your advisory board, what is the plan to actually vet those that actually sit on the advisory board? And when do you plan to actually install the advisory board?
I feel like I know what Sean's going to say, but the first step is executing these agreements and ensuring the protection of the property, and then forming the advisory board would be the next step. The hopeful goal, if it's as presented today, would be that we might be able to figure something out by the end of the year to potentially activate for next year. And the process, we have several advisory boards. One that I help steward, the Heritage Conservation Council. So we have frameworks in place for how advisory boards work. We actually already have a joint advisory board with the Douglas County Food Policy Council, so we could look to them for how to best operate a joint council. So we've got a lot of great work being done, so we could use those models.
And I do want to make sure that those are appointments that I think we would want to bring back to you all, and certainly want to have you all have input into who the outreach is going. So very similar to how other committee appointees get in is the same path that we would look like for this.
Thank you.
It's not too early to just put a plug in. I would advocate for a youth member on that committee. I think that would be an important role to play.
Sean or Caitlin, I'm not sure who wants to answer this one, so I'll just toss it out there. In the recommendation, it says county support for blackjack, currently $9,737 per year should be maintained to support programming, but I didn't see that in the agreement. So that's just a hopeful budget request from staff, right?
That was part of that preservation committee report. So that was mostly, again, led by that staff was involved with that, but that report was generated by community members. So that was our framework that we were kind of running with here. And so that's the framework. And so that's where that advisory board might help advise on what might be most appropriate moving forward.
Questions, Commissioner?
I do still, that's right. What then becomes of the Blackjack Battlefield Trust as an organization? This has been kind of their charter and their mission. Did they then dissolve and then this city county board takes over kind of that advisory role?
Sean, if you want to.
I can't speak to necessarily what happens to the trust. The trust is going to be the one that's going to have to decide that. But again, I think that from our standpoint, what we're looking for is engagement on this from the people that know this site the best. And there's certainly members on the trust. Gary's one of them that's in our audience tonight that again is been involved in this site for as long as as we can remember. And ultimately, again, I think that we need to lean in to that expertise. But again, I'm not sure about what happens to them after this, but there would be a place to have a conversation here.
I would certainly value the voices that have been involved here. I guess I'm getting more to the nitty gritty of like, what about these restricted funds? What about the funds that were, by donated dollars to programming at that site? What happens to those when it then becomes a separate entity owning it? Maybe those are still being worked out, but I'm really curious.
I think that falls outside of the county's.
Yeah, I think it's too soon. We need to execute this first, because if the commission isn't interested in the purchase, then our role in this doesn't continue. So I think those are more to come, and we'll bring them back to you as we have that worked out.
So in reviewing the recommendation, I was interested if this is something the county has done before. I wondered, the trust was something that was put together to preserve the land and the history behind the land. We don't get a lot of requests, whether this is from the city of Baldwin or this group or who that's from, to sort of, I don't want to use the word bailout. I'm really trying to avoid that, but to help with financial. Have we done this before? I don't know how Lone Star and Lake came into possibility. I mean, what would we do if another site that someone, I mean, heaven forbid, the Watkins was in that situation, you know? Can you talk to us about why this one you thought it was appropriate for Douglas County to get involved in?
I mean, what I would say is we don't jointly own any other park property with any other city. However, we've numerous partnerships with cities on a variety of different issues, the largest of which is Lawrence Douglas County Fire and Medical. We have jointly owned land for economic development purposes with Venture Park and East Hills Business Park with the city of Lawrence. So we've partnered with cities on a variety of different endeavors. We've also partnered with nonprofits for support, including the Lawrence Community Shelter, where we've come in and we've provided assets and resources on different things. So while this is unique with a heritage site, in terms of it, it didn't feel that far from work that we had done on previous things. This really is a very important site to this community. We've already invested hundreds of thousands of dollars from Douglas County resources through the Heritage Conservation Council into this site. It is linked to the Santa Fe Trail and the work that that organization has done. And so it has a number of positives that we felt were important that it not fall into hands and not be accessible to the public.
And,
That
and
answer
yeah,
your question?
that helps. I mean, especially around the partnership, like this is a little different in some of those. That's investment in that partnership. Maybe this sort of on the backside, but in all of those partnerships, Douglas County has a role in representing the direction through governance in some way. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think through this memorandum of agreement, we would also be involved in that direction setting moving forward.
And I might also just add, the county owns the property of Ivan Boyd Prairie, which is stewarded in part by the Santa Fe Trail Historical Society, which I was just reminded of. And I know that the county was actively involved with the Watkins Museum back in 2000 something to help when they had some financial troubles. The county was actively involved in that as well. So these partnerships, like Sarah mentioned, are not unique to the county, but might be unique in this present form.
Can maybe to help with continuity too a little bit, so we did have an update on open space a couple of meetings ago. So this is somewhat of in that vein of how the county can participate in this type of endeavor, with open space being sort of the backdrop of it. Obviously, the partnership that we've formed with KLT is an example of, again, just stewardship of land. This one, as Sarah mentioned, has that historical wrinkle to it that, for us, this is a big part of our identity. So I just wanted to kind of add, again, some level of continuity that this is things that we have been active in and are being a little bit more active in this space as we can find appropriate places.
I did not realize that the county was the owner of the Santa Fe Trail Ruts property there, the Ivan Boyd Prairie. Did not know that. Yeah, but I was, and I usually keep pretty good track of these things. But I was going to kind of point out, like, not only does it have that historical significance, but it has kind of in that environs, we've got some other kind of programmatic spaces and historic environs along with it. And I think that's important too. I mean, even more, raises that level of importance for the site.
Yep, I'll just, to piggyback off of what Sean just shared about open space a little bit, and back to your question, Commissioner Kelly, when I was reading this the other day, I thought to myself, well, a new interlocal agreement is not necessarily abnormal. We've been in a process in this commission in the past few years of sort of narrowing down the list of interlocal agreements, getting rid of some that maybe weren't relevant, or finding other ways to make those things make more sense. So adding an interlocal agreement didn't really strike me but the land acquisition piece of it. And and there's a uniqueness to that element too, right? We're contributing to, if the commission agrees to this, it's the county's contribution to the acquisition of that land and the commitment to being able to hold it in public, as a public land. But I got really excited about the opportunity to, throughout all of our open space conversations, wondering and waiting and thinking about what new parks Douglas County might have over time, or what public space Douglas County might be a more direct part of, either adding to the list of available resources or helping maintain those resources that we have in our community. And so I'm just excited about that alignment with the open space goals. And it feels like a unique opportunity that presented itself, and that maybe there'll be other opportunities in the future that present themselves in a way that make a lot of sense for public partnership to be able to secure that future for access and for just preservation purposes.
And I agree, Commissioner, that's what the open space funds are for. And we will be bringing projects to you in the future that will expand the county's investment in open spaces.
Okay, it looks like we've ran out of questions for now. We'll open this up for public comment. Would anybody here at the courthouse like to provide public comment?
Yes, Commissioners. My name is Kerry Altenburn, and I am currently the Vice President of the Blackjack Battlefield Trust. And we have not had a voice in this at all. And I'd like to request that I get more than 3 minutes to talk, because this story goes on for quite a bit. And you need to know, you've asked a lot of questions that they can't answer, that I can answer, because I was the one that got the contract from Alice Cavender in 2003, putting down personal money for a while to protect the battlefield. And back then, the county couldn't care less about the battlefield. As a matter of fact, nobody cared about the battlefield. It just sat there for a month and nobody bought it until we purchased it. And we co-formed the Blackjack Battlefield Trust. I'm a trustee. It is my obligation to do the best for that thing as possible, the best that we possibly can. And I would like to, if I could, speak more than 3 minutes. Is that possible?
So Carrie, why don't you take your 3 minutes, and then commissioners may have questions after
Okay, well,
either.
the story is a lot longer than 3 minutes.
Well-
And you've asked a lot of questions that I can answer, but I can't answer it in 3 minutes.
We're going to keep you at 3 minutes for now.
That's not fair. The county gets their say. We have issues with the way this whole thing has been done, but we can't tell it to you directly at the board meeting.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay? I don't know where to start with 3 minutes. We have never been brought into this. The last thing we were told was that Baldwin was selling land to purchase the land. We were in this situation because we had over $1 million of pledges to do our capital improvement fund. And those all vanished when the foundation that was supplying them decided they didn't want to do it, and they disbanded the foundation. We had already done a bridge loan to keep our process going, and that's why the money is in there. This is our third mortgage that we've had. And we came to the point where we could not possibly pay it off. We came to the county. We talked to the county for more than a year, and it seemed like we were being strung along. Now, that's quite frankly how we feel, and we felt and we still feel that. And then we told the county, well, it's absolutely impossible to go beyond this last January 1. It would get foreclosed after that. And we were told, well, there's nothing the county can do until May of 2025. So what were we going to do? We looked around, and Baldwin came in. They said they would lease the property for a year with the option to buy. Now, that's an option contract. They do not have, there is no purchase contract. That still all needs to be negotiated. They said that the Blackjack Battlefield Trust would continue to be in the operation of it. And we were told all kinds of things. Now, apparently isn't the truth, because the Baldwin City just passed something this past week that said that no Blackjack Battlefield Trust member can ever be on the board. We've been treated as if we are somehow untrustworthy, even though we've kept that place going for 20 some years. And we feel that we were misused by the county. And
Gary, that's your time. Thank you.
questions?
We'll discuss it, and if we have questions, we'll ask you.
Okay. I'm not happy.
Any other public comment?
My name is Marta Jardin. Do you need my address?
Be helpful.
1677 North 400 Road. I'm a citizen of Baldwin City, member of Santa Fe Trail Historical Society. Carrie, I was at the last city council meeting. There was nothing passed that said a member of Blackjack Trust could not be on the committee. There was nothing said about the Blackjack Trust at all. I think you have some misinformation. Anyway, I appreciate your consideration of this matter very much. We all are interested in supporting the Blackjack Battlefield. As we all stated, Carrie, at the meeting last year,
Pam, make sure you direct
in
your
2025
comments to
to you.
commission. Yeah.
I was at that meeting. The trust people came to that meeting and asked the county for support. Everyone was supportive. Santa Fe Trail Historical Society was there and also explained to the county how important Blackjack Battlefield is to Baldwin City and the residents, and how many people came to the battlefield on a yearly basis and just agreed with the trust that this was important. We helped with the county in coming up with some plans. We've been supportive, and we want to continue to support the group. So we appreciate you considering this matter, because this is a great thing for all of Douglas County. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment here at the courthouse? Anyone online, Sarah? Okay. We'll bring it back up to the commission. A little bit about process before we make comments. We have an expectation that we give everyone the same amount of time to provide public comment. If we extend that, we get into some very legal difficulties there. And so we want to make sure that we're consistent. The commission can ask questions either of staff or even of the public if that's something that they want to do. They can make a motion on the item. They can defer the item. They can make changes to the item. There's lots of options that they have, but that public comment process needs to be followed very closely. And so I appreciate it that sometimes it feels like it would be better to have a conversation, but we need to follow that public comment process. So thank you for that, commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Wiley.
I'd add under your comments that, we're very available to the public outside of this meeting also, and for the years leading up to this as this conversation's been unfolding.
Okay, commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Willie. Further discussion, questions, comments, motions?
I'll start with Sean. Can you talk, I know it was going to be on the Baldwin City agenda. It was last night. I wasn't able to watch the meeting. What can you tell us about what they passed or what they agreed to? Is
Yeah.
it the same as what we have here or different?
Yep. So they considered and approved both agreements last week at their meeting. I believe they did have a condition on there that just said they weren't going to notice the trust until such time as these agreements have been approved by you all. So I think that was the only nuance. But again, these are the same agreements that the city of Baldwin has approved based on that condition.
And the county would be able to put whoever, there are no limitations on who the county would choose to put onto the advisory board or anything like that that are, included in these agreements or Baldwin Cities.
No, that is very, yeah, as far as the county is concerned, there's nothing in the agreement that stipulates anybody needs to specifically be on there other than to say that there will be an equal set of individuals from the city and then the county. So if you have 5, city will get 5. If they have 10, we would have 10.
Meaning that each of those bodies can put up 5 people, not that they have to have a residency requirement
Right.
of within the city limits or near the city limits, et cetera.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And Sean, can you just talk a little bit about the governance structure one more time?
Yep. So the advisory board, I'm pulling it up. Just so I'll just read it. The city and county will jointly appoint a joint advisory board composed of an equal number of representatives of both entities. The requirements of it will be that they meet twice annually and report or make recommendations on the following. So this is the short-term and long-term park development, the maintenance capital projects, programming and public use, strategic planning and visioning, and then signage, marketing, and then also the county's recognition as far as, again, providing the funds to acquire it. And then I do just want to point out this last part that says the city and the county will retain authority to make decisions regarding these and other matters related to the property. So ultimately, the recommendations of the advisory board would come before both governing bodies to ultimately consider and implement if they so choose.
Thank you.
Carrie, only if we ask questions. Thank you. I appreciate it. So Sean, I had a question about the committee. Do we know how many times the committee met?
You mean
The
Ad hoc committee.
The ad hoc.
Thank you.
Caitlin might have to help me on that.
I just conferred, we think about 3 or 4 times. It was through the summer months. So yeah.
Did the committee take any minutes or attendance or any of those things?
We might have some notes from the meetings that were compiled. I remember a couple of documents of sharing ideas. I remember I think Steve put forward a couple of guiding questions that kind of led those meetings. So I'm sure could track down additional materials from that. But nothing formal.
Okay.
And I want to stress, it was an ad hoc group of folks that were really interested. It was not a formal named committee. It was not formally chartered. Wasn't requiring, it was just a group of folks that were interested in making sure that the site was preserved.
I'd also add on to that it was mostly, to put the word chartered loosely, initiated, that's a better word, by the Douglas County Historical Society Board. So that's also of note.
Thanks.
Caitlin, when we look at the list of names that are on the ad hoc committee, and Carrie Altenbrand has identified as the vice president of the Blackjack Battlefield Trust. Were there other members of the Blackjack Battlefield Trust that were in this list? I could read the list, but other folks that brought that voice to the ad hoc committee?
I believe it was just Carrie in those meetings.
Jonathan Hart.
Or Jonathan. Was he in those? He was invited. Also Jonathan Hart was invited.
Thank you.
And would you talk through just a little bit regarding the contract that's currently in place and what would need to happen if this is approved in order to move forward?
Might toss that to Sean.
Are you asking about the lease between the city and the trust?
Correct. Thank you.
For this to move forward, again, there's an option to buy the property that expires on the 30th day of November 2025. There is an exclusive option. So the option to purchase the property is with the city of Baldwin. So that's why this is structured the way that it is ultimately that, again, the city of Baldwin retains the right to purchase the property based off of this lease agreement. There's some closing and settlement that I don't know if you really want me to get into any of all of that, but ultimately it's once it's noticed by the city of Baldwin that kind of triggers these other things in their lease with the trust.
And what is Blackjack Trust's role in that entire contractual agreement?
I'm not sure their role.
Yeah, because do they currently hold the contract with, okay, and
Yeah,
so,
so the agreement is, the lease agreement is a lease agreement between the city of Baldwin and Blackjack Trust. So within that, I believe the base lease, the tenant shall pay a monthly lease of $1,500 is what the contract term was for the duration. And that was essentially December 2024 through November of 2025.
and so if the commission were to approve this, what is the process to work through the relationship with Blackjack Trust
For the county,
and
the-
or Baldwin City?
I wouldn't be able to answer that necessarily on the city's behalf. Again, I think we're participating in this from the standpoint that we would be providing the funds. Beyond that, it's incumbent upon the city of Baldwin to again,
Finalize?
produce a clear title that can ultimately, well, be deeded as a warranty deed. So those are the stipulations there. But beyond that, I think we're fairly hands off until we would get to the point of talking about this advisory committee and how that kind of comes together.
Okay, thank you.
If I can pull on that thread just a little bit more, what you just said, Sean. So the question before the county commission today is these two agreements that we have confirmed are verbatim what was just approved by Baldwin City, and that our agreement in these two agreements is to provide the cash, provide part of the cash to go towards the purchase of the land. And then after that, it is up to Baldwin City to execute that based on a clear title and everything else going, quote unquote, as it is expected to go, at least by some folks' standards. So anything that might happen that disrupts this agreement or throws it off the rails wouldn't necessarily involve the county being a part of determining those next steps, because this agreement outlines that if we say yes, then that's sort of green light go for Baldwin to pursue the final steps of acquiring a clear title and completing the purchase, which is obviously between them and the trust. And there are things involved in that process. And to Commissioner Anderson's point, the current lease and contract terms within that that are not necessarily relevant to the question before us today, which is, do we want to contribute to the planned purchase of this property?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. What you're considering today are two agreements, one of which is providing funds and it really just sort of specifies under what environment terms those funds would be dispersed. And again, I think the big linchpin of it is clear title, warranty deed. And again, that sets in motion the next steps, which would be this committee, which would be the bigger sort of tent conversations that still need to be had.
Thank you.
And those conversations would be between Baldwin City and the Blackjack Battlefield Trust. Blackjack Battlefield Trust is the seller, Baldwin City as the purchaser, along with this agreement that we were working with them.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for laying that out. So if the purchase goes through, then that's really what triggers this second agreement of joint ownership. Thank you.
And if we approve and the purchase goes through, we will only disperse the funds, correct? Once everything is finalized. But if for some reason there is a bit of a snafu, we do not disperse any funds.
Correct. And
Okay.
I would say there's also
even to maybe go a little bit further on this, if there are things that are found as a defective title after closing, there is a remedy to that as well. So it's not just necessarily about having all your ducks in a row. We certainly strive to do that, but there is sort of that other sort of section in there that covers a defect in the title if it becomes known after the fact.
So we've had Kerry Altenbrand kind of flag that there are conversations that, from his part, that the trust may still want to be having in that space. And it sounds like that next step would be between the trust and Baldwin City to work out those agreements. So, an offer might be made, it might be accepted or rejected. It sounds like we're getting a clearer picture of what our request is for us to consider today, and then what the rest of that process might look like also. I would say for my part, I want to see this site preserved. I want to see it have a future for Baldwin City, for Douglas County. It's a nationally important site. I love that it is, geographically close to the Santa Fe Trail ruts, and that there's, ongoing community engagement through that site also. This is a really special place in the heart of our, for us locally and beyond. So I want to see it done right. I think there's been a lot of work that's gone into it and a lot of voices that have been in here, but I think I am supportive of the open space funds being used in this way for this property. If if all other parties that work on it from here on out can come to agreement.
I agree. I think it'd be a great benefit to our open spaces plan.
I'm very supportive of this and excited about the possibility. And I, want to acknowledge, as we do many times in this room, that collaboration and change is hard, and that the sort of transition phase of that in particular can be difficult and extra prickly. So I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot of history about this site, and even going back decades, and even just a lot of more recent and acute history about how we've sort of arrived at this moment, and the financial situation that prompted this question in the first place. It's difficult to distill down into a presentation in this room before a governing body that has a very narrow sort of question before it. And so I just want to recognize that there's some tension in that space, and that for you, Carrie, and maybe for others who are trustees or others in the community who might share some of that same history and perspective, that there could be fuller conversations to be had. And I appreciate and respect that. I think all the information that I've received tells me that there's been a series of conversations that have involved all relevant parties, including Blackjack Battlefield Trust, to come to this set of recommendations about a possible solution. And I think that it's a really positive pathway forward. I don't doubt that there are still some, as we've discussed in this room, some things about what the full long-term future of that site looks like, both in terms of the management of it, the programming for it. But I think that those things are all possible to figure out, and could be even more enhanced and more robust after being able to secure it as public land in perpetuity. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. I think that, I want to encourage that any member of the public, and certainly trustee members that might have concerns, that we accept public comment and direct contact from community members all the time. We accept public comment in writing of any length. And, if there's, I will say I would have hoped to understand sooner that there might be some concerns from some of the trust, but I would also hope for it to be from multiple members of the trust, because it does matter whether it's a majority of the trust feels a certain way, but nothing about this process and how we came to these recommendations that are before us, and now the options for these agreements that are before us as a result of that, Nothing indicates to me that that people weren't invited to the table to be a part of the discussion, and that this is a solution that is positive in all of the ways that have been enumerated, and that there's opportunity to still figure out some of the particulars about how to really make sure that this is successful moving forward if we do acquire, if it does become a public land, and how we make sure that all stakeholders and entities really feel like their voices represented in the long-term sustainability of this, because I think that we're at a moment of just determining that this is a property we don't want to let go and don't want to risk losing. And if we can secure it now, that there'll be a lot more opportunity for long-term positive impact on the community.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner Reed, and I just want to add a few other elements to it. I think it can feel in some of our deliberations and some of the items that come before the commission that there is a pressure, that there is a moment when we can use that pressure because an impending vote is happening to stall a process or to bring up things that aren't clear enough. And I've seen that a lot in here, and I don't I don't want to suppose that it's being done purposefully instead of communicating with us on the front end about concerns, or meeting with the committee to talk about those concerns, or even to share as those 3 meetings happened that these are the concerns that were raised or that people were not included. It isn't really a great process to argue that out in this space, and there's nothing in this that tells me there isn't a way back if challenges are come upon. I mean, one of our options is we could defer it to get those things figured out, but sometimes, and with all good intentions, we say that a issue is much more complex than anyone can understand in this space. I think we have a duty to move forward with things. Sometimes that's why our process is the way it is to push something forward, even if there is a disagreement about it. There's nothing in here that tells me that there's no going back at this point. I really appreciate some questions from commissioners on who would make the decision to go back if we decided not to do it. We have the ability to do that in the future, and my reading of the agreement is that's pretty open about how we could do it, as does the city of Baldwin, if they can't work out something with the trust. And I think also in my reading of the agreement, the city of Baldwin has the option to purchase the property. If the trust didn't feel comfortable with that, then they shouldn't have given that option. And so that option was already in place according to what we've been given. So I'm comfortable with this. I appreciate that we spent time. I do understand Mr. Altenbeard's concern with our process, and I get that, and it's not always perfect. But in this case, I think I'm comfortable moving forward. Anybody want to make a motion or have more comments?
Happy to. Commissioner Reed moved to approve a financing agreement and joint ownership agreement with the city of Baldwin City for the acquisition of the Blackjack Battlefield property located at 163 East 200th Road, Douglas County, Kansas.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments?
Just an edit on the address. That's East 2000 Road. So
Oh, thank you.
different township.
Want to modify your motion?
After I close the tab. So I don't have it in front of me.
Sorry.
That's okay. It always looks different on here.
You could just say, I move to modify based on Commissioner
you.
Willie's.
I move to modify my motion based on Commissioner Willie's edit.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, community members who joined us today. That finishes off our general business or regular agenda items. We'll move on to appointments. Commissioners, do we have appointments this evening?
Commissioners, I would mention that I sent you information related to John Crable on the Lawrence Community Shelter Board. He is up for reappointment and eager to continue to serve. And then also we have a recommendation from the Heritage Conservation Council.
I would be, I'm glad to see that John Kriebel is interested in continuing to serve on the LCS board. So I'd be happy to make that motion to reappoint John Kriebel for an additional term on the LCS advisory board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the other recommendation from the Heritage Conservation Council is Tasha Dare. And the Heritage Conservation folks have met with her and she's expressed her interest.
I hope commissioners had a chance to read
Yeah,
Tasha's
you had-
resume. It's very extensive and significant. We're great to have that person want to join our Heritage Conservation Council. Unless commissioners want more time, I'm happy to make that recommendation. All right. Move to appoint Tasha Dare to the Heritage Conservation Council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. All
I
right.
know I've got some more coming to you. Commissioner Dorsey's found a recommendation for a BZA, so I'm going to send that to commissioners as well. And I would point out, maybe while I have you, we've looked a little bit more into the non-lawyer appointment to the Judicial Nominating Council. And each of you have an appointment.
Right. It's not approved by us, right? We just get to appoint it. Go ahead.
it's
I
good.
interrupted you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would love it to be a part of the official record. Normally you vote on those, so and technically you wouldn't have to, but I do want to point out, they don't have to live in your district. So it would be one of those things, so Commissioner Dorsey, you do have an appointment for that, but they don't have to live in your district. So if other folks have folks that they want to send Commissioner Dorsey's way, he does need to proceed with, eventually, hopefully get you some names for that appointment. But technically, that one doesn't need to be appointed by the whole commission, but I certainly don't think a vote hurts.
I have a question on that. Am I the only one that has?
No, everyone else has already made their appointment.
Oh, okay.
Right, so Commissioner Anderson made hers a few weeks back, and then these folks had
Gotcha.
from the districts from before.
I was confused last week because it
Yes, and
said
that-
4th district.
Yeah, Robin and I have looked into it, and I was thinking about it as they don't have to live in your district, though. You can appoint anyone from the whole county, but it is a district appointment, so that's why we've left it that way in the memo. But currently, some of the members do not live in the commission district under which they were appointed.
Because,
Commissioner
for
Dorsey?
example, the person that I appointed lives over off like Prescott Drive. So I think technically might be Commissioner
Willie.
Kelly's district.
Yeah.
So
I think Commissioner Willie.
And I have a name to forward to you for your consideration. And I believe she lives in Commissioner Anderson's district.
That's all I have on appointments, commissioners.
Love how the sausage is made. All right. I think that wraps up appointments. That was a pause just to make sure. We'll move on to Commissioner or Administrator Miscellaneous, and we'll start with our administrative memo from Sarah.
Thanks, commissioners. I've added a bunch, we're getting lots of dates for fun fall activities are added to the memo. So O'Connell Children's Shelter is hosting a groundbreaking event. The K-State Extension in Live Well Douglas County is hosting an event on October 11th at the fairgrounds. So there's lots and lots of cool stuff coming up if you want to check those out. Next week, we do have a work session on supportive housing case management. That's all I've got, commissioners.
Thank you. Any miscellaneous items from commissioners?
Just to recognize a couple of members of Troop 55 who have joined us for our meeting tonight.
You like the sunglasses? That's cool. Awesome. It's great. I'll share that Commissioner Dorsey and I met. I know all commissioners got the email from the Eudora superintendent, and Commissioner Dorsey and I met with a great group of people today, including some of the City of Eudora council members, also the Schools Foundation and United Way. I don't think we really came up with any big decisions, but it was really a great discussion, and I appreciate Commissioner Dorsey being there and Sarah being there. It was really great. Anything else? All right, we are adjourned.